So this video will be talking about the math basics used in chemistry to do conversions. We are only going to talk about a little review of the fractions in order to prepare you for the chemistry equations that we'll be doing. We're not going to do a complete review of all the fractions. Before we do calculations with the fractions, let's first make some fractions from an equality. We'll use one that you already know. You know that $1 is equal to 100 cents. Now we're going to make that equality into a fraction that is equal to 1. We're going to divide both sides by $1. And you can see that that is now equal to the number 1. Similarly, I could take the same equality, $1 is equal to 100 cents, and in this time divide it both sides by 100 cents. And again, we see that this fraction that we made is equal to the number 1. So why do I want to make the number 1? Well, because in math, you know that if I multiply or divide by 1, I get the same number. I get the same answer. In chemistry, we're going to use that to help us find a way to convert from one unit to another. In this case, we're going from dollars to cents, or from cents to dollars. For these calculations, we're going to convert from one unit to another by doing a cancellation of units and leaving us with a new unit. So in order to understand that, we'll need a quick review of how numbers can be canceled from the top and the bottom of a fraction. First, we'll start with some numbers with no units. So let's look at what is 3/4 times 4/7. Here you can see that the 4's cancel out, and our answer is left with 3/7. So let's make it a little bit harder. We're now going to put some units in. Let's do 3x divided by 4 times 4y divided by 7x. So again, you should see that the 4's cancel out, but now also the x's cancel out. So we're left with 3y divided by 7. In this case, my units are x and y. Now let's try it when we have dollars and cents instead of x and y. Okay, you probably already know the answer to this question, but that's good because now you'll know if you did it right. So here's the question. How many cents is $4? We're going to start the problem by writing the number 4 for the $4, the symbol $sign. We're going to put that over a 1. We're making this into a fraction. I know you don't like fractions, but it's over 1, so it shouldn't be too difficult. Now we're going to know that from our list above, we have that $1 is equal to 100 cents. Now we have to decide which of the two multipliers of 1 we want to use. Do we want to use the 100 cents over $1 is equal to 1, or do we want to use that $1 over 100 cents is equal to 1? To determine that, we need to know what we started with. So in our question, we said that we had $4. Notice then that the dollar sign is on top of the fraction. In order to get rid of the dollar sign and turn it into cents, we need to have the dollar sign from our equation to 1. We need that dollar sign to be on the bottom. And that leaves our answer in cents because that'll be on the top. Notice how we set this up so that the dollar signs will cancel out. That's how you decide to set up the equation. Now we need to decide, where do I put the 1, where do I put the 100, what do I do with those? Well, we know that $1 is equal to 100 cents. That tells us that those two parts stick together. The 1 is always going to stay with the dollar, the 100 goes with the cents, because that's the equality. Now, you can either do this in your head or put it in your calculator. In either case, you're going to take the 4, you're going to divide that by 1, because you see the fraction has a 1 on the bottom. You probably don't have to actually do that because we know dividing by 1 is still going to be 4. Then we're going to multiply by 100 because that's on the top, and we're going to divide by 1 again because that's on the bottom. So anything on the top is a multiplier, anything on the bottom is a divider. But when you do these problems, as we get into more complicated ones, you should always start with the one on top, divide by the one on the bottom. Multiply by the next one on top, divide by the one on the bottom. Multiply by the next one on top, divide by the one on the bottom. It'll be easier for you to follow that consistently so that you don't accidentally multiply by a wrong number. And now we see that our answer is 400 cents. What if I had asked how many dollars is 683 cents? Now we'll start this problem with the 683 cents that we were given in the question. We're going to write that into a fraction, writing it over 1. And now we need to figure out what to multiply by. So again, is it going to be 100 cents over $1 or $1 over 100 cents? Same ratios, but now we make a different choice. Notice that on the top we have cents, so that means that cents has to go to the bottom on our second part so that those two cent signs can cancel. Now we know how to convert from cents to dollars, so we're going to use the dollar on top, cents on bottom fraction. And remember that the 100 stays with the cents and that the dollar stays with the 1. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the number that we have, 683, divide that by 1, multiply by 1, divide by 100. That's what our calculator will see. It doesn't see the units. We've already canceled out our cents on the top, our cents on the bottom, leaving us with our answer in dollars. And our answer is $6.83. What if I asked you a question like this? How many days is 180 hours? Well, you probably could figure this out. But we're going to show you the simple method that uses the information that you know, the relationship between days and hours, and uses a fraction to make it a simple calculation. The first step in any math problem is to figure out what you know already, and then to find out what you need to know. We're also going to have, in this case, something that you know from your memory, and that will be how many hours are in one day. Oftentimes that will be given to you in a chart of some sort. So what do we know? We know that we have 180 hours. What are we looking for? We're looking at how many days that is. What are we trying to convert then? We're trying to go from hours to days. So what relationship do we know between hours and days? Whatever that is, we call that a conversion factor. We know that 1 day is 24 hours. What are the two fractions that we can get from 1 day equals 24 hours that are both equal to 1? If we divide both sides by 1 day, we get that there are 24 hours per day. If we divide both sides by 24 hours, we get that there is 1 day for every 24 hours. Both of these fractions are correct, but only one of them is useful for our conversion. To decide which fraction we're going to use, we need to start with what we already know. In this case, we know that there are 180 hours to start with. Now, we write that over 1 to make it into a fraction. Next, we're going to notice that we have hours on top. We need those units to cancel, and this is where your fraction math will help you. We make sure that the hours on the top cancels with the hours on the bottom. So we'll have the 24 hours on the bottom, and then we're going to convert that into days, which is going to go on the top. And you will see that our hours cancels out and leaves us with the unit of days. And now you can use your calculator. You'll take the 180 hours, divide it by the number 1, multiply it by the number 1, neither of which you really have to do because multiplying and dividing by 1 has no effect on the calculation. And then we're going to divide that by 24 hours. And that gives us your answer. In this case, 7.5 days. What if I had asked you how many hours is in 50 days? In this case, we now know that there are 50 days, and we know that we're looking for how many hours. Next, we need to know what kind of conversions we know, and again, we know that 24 hours is equal to 1 day, and that means that we have the same two ratios that we had before. There are 24 hours per day, or 1 day has 24 hours. We start the math part of this with the thing that we know, which in this case is 50 days. So if we have 50 days, we're going to write that over 1 to make it into a fraction. And now we should find what we need to cancel, what needs to go on the bottom. In this case, because we have days on top, we need to have the days on the bottom in the conversion. And that means hours will go on top because we're going from days to hours. So how many days are we looking at? In this fraction, it's going to be 1 day is 24 hours. So the 1 goes with days, the 24 goes with the hours. So now you can see how the units of days cancels out, and we are left with the unit of hours for our answer. And then on our calculator we put in the math. We have 50 divided by 1 times 24 divided by 1. And again, the ones don't have to be put into the calculator as long as you know that multiplying and dividing by the number 1 gives you the same number. At the end, the answer of this is 1,200, and then what is our units? It's hours.